We ain't picking tanks yet till I get this intro done. Alright, so welcome everybody to the stream, podcast, discussion thing, whatever I'm going to call this. I have no clue what I'm going to call this. But there is recently a question asked on the forums for a video to be made regarding how to fight platoons with solo. So I figured the best way to do that, have a kind of like a podcast thing here where people could offer input. So while I pick a tank, we're going to stick with tier 8 for the right now, these scenarios that I have here. But to simplify things here, we're going to just assume that the platoons here, and you, are tier 8, that you're dealing with a 5 platoon, a solo player. Have here would be that you are facing a platoon as, let's just put like a tank, maybe like a 4202P, or like a Primo Victoria, or some with gun depression or the ability to, that's mobile, something like that, like the Atomic here. And you would be facing, I don't know, like maybe a standard platoon type of thing of like 2 IS-3s and 2 Pershings and, 1 light tank. So, and also, I guess for map placement, let's do something where you got like half the map is a city and half the map is a, it's like Siegfried Line, for example. Let's use Siegfried Line. So how would you fight platoon with that on how to do that?
Look for when going up against the platoon is isolated. That platoon is going. And second, I want bet. But the worst thing that can is to get isolated on a flank against you because they're going to focus you out.
Do you have a specific order or a strategy in mind when facing these tanks? Like, aside from not getting isolated there, that would be your first priorities to avoid getting isolated. But how would you go down into taking down these tanks? Like, how would you do that?
For me, I'm going to look for...
Me?
Well, yeah, you, Vader.
I'd look for the over-aggressor and single him out.
Yeah.
Her out.
Yeah,
right.
There's always going to be one person in a platoon. Platoons in public matches aren't very disciplined. It's very different than like comp, where you have a caller. Occasionally, when you go against some of the top clans platooning, you will have someone kind of calling, and that's a very different situation than just 4 or 5 people casually platooning. Yeah, we'll hang together for the most part, but it normally isn't really well organized. So sometimes, like Vader said, you can get that guy isolated and that's pushing out, take them out, and all that stuff they can do is back off and dig in. They
all right.
YOLO you to get up their grill.
So, like, would you assume that the person that's being over-aggressive or maybe pushing out of position, would you say that he is the biggest threat out of that platoon?
Not necessarily. Sometimes the smartest players are ones that lay back a little bit more and see how the game develops, and you have sometimes the potatoes out in front in the group. So my point is, it doesn't always hold true that the person out in front is the most dangerous. They could be the biggest idiot on the team. But they are providing vision and an opportunity for you to put in a lot of damage, right?
Yeah.
Weaken that platoon. My other thing is, I was going to add to what Vader said, when facing a platoon, I always think guns out of the game. So I'm looking, is there a weak tank, for instance, someone low on points, that in a shot or two I can help get them out. And, because the worst thing you can have is a one-shot tank that's still firing its gun at you.
Okay. So it is important then that, to also take into consideration the hit pool of the tanks in question, and that you should eliminate the tanks with the least amount of health first to knock those guns out.
Yeah, which is probably true for just playing in general, but definitely when it comes to a platoon, Because the one thing the platoon always has the advantage in, or the potential to, is the focus fire. And if someone on the platoon, even if they're greenies and they're not that bright, say, hey, I need some help with this tank in front of me, they're going to try to focus you.
Yeah.
And chances are the person with the weak gun or the person in a bad situation is going to be the one calling for help. Him out, get her out soon, is only going to be advantageous to you.
All right. I got a couple various types of platoons that you might encounter in the game, and I'd like to hear your guys' opinions on how exactly you would try and deal with them. But real quick, because I don't play Artie at all, Fox, maybe you could answer this. How do you switch cameras as an Artie? Is it like clicking the right stick?
You hold the right stick down.
Okay, you do hold the right stick down. Okay, because I know zooming in, you just click the right stick. Just wanted to double check. So the next platoon scenario you might encounter is one of those ones where it's like you have someone's trying to get a mark on their tank, or it is or they're just trying to derp patrol with artillery. But let's say that you are now dealing with a platoon of I think it's like 2 or 3 Arties is max in a platoon, and you are now dealing with a platoon of 3 Arties and 1 medium tank and a light tank. How would you deal with a platoon that has the 3 Arties supporting those 2 tanks? What would you do? How would you play?
Well,
a lot of cover.
The first thing is, and when I look at the playlist, I want to identify what are those light tanks, because the worst thing you can do is just start trundling around and not realize that the tank lighting you up or the tank you're fighting has Artie support. So, because that's where the Artie's going to go. So first, identify those light tanks and know where they're at on the map. So if I see them on the other side of the map lighting stuff up, I know I don't need to be as Artie safe. However, if I see that light tank's lighting me up, or that medium tank, and then I got to be smart about how much I'm exposing my tank right then.
Yeah. I do have another one here. That's in relation to that, but it's more along the lines of those pesky light tanks here. How would you deal with this when you got one of those platoons, kind of like what Devin does with all Lycans? How would you deal with that? And for this one, you are in a medium tank or a heavy tank. It doesn't matter which one you are, but you have to deal with those pesky, little swarms of mosquitoes and cockroaches that are flying around like that.
Yeah.
Try to make it a one-way fight rather than letting them have the advantage of circling.
Yeah, so you got to pick the ground that the fight takes place on, because that's the big advantage that they always have, is that they're going to try to control the engagement. They dominate where they can get around you and maneuver, and if you pick it where they're going to have trouble doing that, then advantage back to you, even if you're outnumbered.
I see. What would you say would be that best area to hinder light tanks?
Well, again, if I'm in a medium or heavy, I'd want to take that fight into maybe a city or something like that, where the maneuverability and the angling of your armor is going to help you out a lot, and maybe even some dead tanks and debris. Light tanks aren't going to do well in a scenario like that.
Yeah.
But if you're fighting out in the middle of the field of Pokrovka, you get fucked.
Oh, you are definitely going to get screwed over by that way. Would you guys agree too that the best way to do that and combat those swarms of light tanks is to stay, even though you are not in a platoon, but to stay in a group of at least your team, so that way safety in numbers as a deterrent, kind of like bug spray.
Sure. Because how many times have you?
Well,
Hello.
Hello? Hello? We kind of disconnected there for a little bit.
Yeah.
Did we?
Well, yeah,
Yeah, we got you back.
I at least did. All right, we were starting with Vader talking regarding that situation there. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So what were you saying, Vader?
I was saying in general, you never want to be the lone man caught out.
Yeah.
Not just in platoon versus, solo versus platoon scenarios. You don't ever want to be the lone wolf.
Yeah.
Doesn't take much to get you tracked and you're dead in 5 seconds,
Yeah.
Because it's almighty RBRT for some reason.
Oh yeah, no, we can. I agree that that the RBRT can be a big issue with that. Now another one I've got here. We're gonna up the tiers and the difficulty a little bit on you guys in the shoes of the solo player. You are now. And we're going to keep kind of like the general lineup of like heavy tanks, mediums, and some lights together and stuff like that. But you are now facing, as a tier 8, you're now facing a platoon of upper tiers of like tier 9 or tier 10. How would you deal with it then?
Find the nearest body of water and drown myself. Not just kidding.
My God.
Vader is that guy.
I'm just kidding. I'm not an arty player.
No, he has never done that. He has never drowned himself.
I don't think anyone would be happy about that, Vader. But seriously, though, how now, again, this isn't kind of like you're the last tank alive or anything like that. This is more of in the general sense of you're fighting, and it happens to be that this platoon of 5 players are, and this could be in the middle of the game where, you are brawling it out and you've got like maybe 2 or 3 of your, your teammates there next to you. You can't communicate with them or they're in a party or something like that, but you are dealing with a platoon of 5 tanks that can communicate with each other. But they're also like higher tier than you. How would you deal with that? How would you fight that?
Well, I think still, ultimately, all situations go back to a little bit of situational awareness, being aware of what that platoon is trying to achieve and and again, if you can pick the battle, you can, pick the location on the map that you want to have the engagement. The worst thing, again, it kind of goes back to what Vader's saying, is getting caught in a position that gives them the advantage. I mean, they already have the advantage in numbers. So you don't want to give them the advantage in terms of the location. And there's some maps that suit that well, and there's other maps that, there's just no way to get that advantage. And that's just, tough.
Yeah. I do have a question, but before I get to this question here that's in the chat, what other, any other comments regarding this? While I also
I would say,
scroll to find a tank.
I would say as well as if you're the low tier versus a higher tier, be very opportunistic on, obviously you're not gonna, because their guns will just penetrate your armor no matter what, unless you're in a VK100 or something like that. It's just,
yeah,
you gotta try to, at this point, use your higher tier allies as somewhat cannon fodder, if you want to say that, because they could at least have a chance to block damage and survive opportunities as soon as the enemy fires to fire on them.
All right. So, and I'm going to answer this question and sum up what you said, but Vader, you might want to check your mic. You kind of started staticking and spacing out there and things. Yeah. But basically what you're saying, from what I got, is to, don't be reckless with your health pool there. You see that the enemy platoon is not aiming at you or they're distracted. Use that opportunity to pull out and make your shot. Don't just, you see all 5 of them aiming at your position. Don't poke out then and try and get a shot off and risk, going back to the garage just for that one shot. Wait and take your time for that opportunity to open. That's what you're saying, correct?
I would say that's in general, that's true for a lot of scenarios, just in general playing, but especially true against a platoon, because the long game favors you, right? The longer you can keep your gun in the game, the longer you can conserve those hit points and play smart. I think I hate to say it, but when you're low tier, this is as true, is knowing when to cut bait and run. And I think a lot of players, because of pride or who knows, will stay in a position where if you back up a few grid squares, your chances of surviving and dealing more damage are going to increase a lot. And having an exit plan, if you're getting pushed, like on the map we're on right now on Redshire, if we're playing on the 8-9 on the 9-0 line with heavy tanks, and all of a sudden I'm up there as a low tier tank with 1 or 2 other tanks, and I see them go down, I want to start backing up and getting into a position where I can keep my gun singing. Standing my ground at a low tier up against a platoon, you're not going to win that.
So keeping your distance along that when facing higher tiers as well, that is a very, very big factor. Okay. So this question here that was asked to me, and I kind of already know the answer to that, because just based on what the ammunition they're shooting, but let's just answer it anyway. What would you think would be the best tank to use against a platoon spamming premium? In my opinion, it probably would be, your best bet is to just hope you got a tank with some pretty thick armor and has the ability to side scrape off a building, because other than that, I mean, if they're shooting heat at you or something like that, it's not going to, your chances of survival, if you're angling that armor pretty well, is going to increase, instead of trying to, just hope your frontal armor is going to help you. I mean, any input on that?
I would, yeah. If I see that a team like that is spamming heat or spamming premium, I'm going to try again, find distance and maybe try to relocate the battle, because you're right, you're going to get melted so fast. I mean, even if you're a super Unicom player, you're going to get melted.
Yeah. No, I agree completely.
So
I mean,
relocate.
Yeah, relocate, or hope to God that your armor's going to hold up, because unfortunately in this game, premium rounds, they negate, the effect of your armor. There is no getting around that. That's good to know that I've only played 2 battles in this tank, and already this armor, this gun is like, oh my god, it's a tier 6 captured, whatever the heck this is. The other question with this, yeah, I know, it's a premium merc. That's fine. The another question here, and this could probably be assumed for pretty much every scenario here, but the question is, would Artie help when facing a platoon of that? I mean, if you're in a platoon, if you're in a platoon with an Artie, we really wouldn't be having, the topic is, you're fighting solo. You aren't able to communicate with anybody on your team. Like, you're assuming that everyone on your team is in their own platoon. Or just doesn't talk, one of those two. I would definitely say Artie would help if they are actually helping your side. Beyond that, I wouldn't count on Artie actually listening to any tank that I call out. I've seen where I've called out a waffle out in the open, and instead I see that the Artie's like, I'm targeting this mouse that's behind this building. I mean, what would you guys say regarding this?
Some of my own advice right now and relocate.
Yeah, I know. Here I am. I'm just struggling to get damage right now. This is like my second game in this thing. I don't even know what I'm doing.
We have all their heavies on the 2-3 line. I put my damage in. I have a quick tank. Now it's time to bug out and keep up with my allies. And again, I'm not saying we're going to win this, but I am saying that
I'm going to die.
Opportunity to get some more damage.
I could definitely use some supporting fire on that Captain.
I'm aiming in on that guy in 2 seconds.
Yeah.
It's just changing from H
I'm
to
swinging
radio.
it. Yeah, I'm swinging it.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, Vader. I'm just going to sit here and just apparently bounce armor because the one thing I was unaware of is this armor is pretty good. And there's Artie behind me.
Oh, that 5-4 is on life support.
I'm a shot on him. I
I'm
can't
not
see
going to worry
him.
about my radio. I'm really not going to worry about my radio.
You don't usually have to. It's your spot.
That works. I love the support, gentlemen. It is glorious. Life support, he's basically saying he's hanging on by a thread. That's the first I've ever heard of that term. I just mostly say it's a one-shot. So it must be Dis's own slang.
That was me.
Or Vader's own slang, I guess.
I always say
I don't-
life support.
I've never heard you say life support.
I'm gonna go after this medium, and then I'll come over and help you.
Okay, he's firing premium.
Because-
I just now realized this. Of course, I'm firing premium too. I have completely forgot that I had premium loaded, but yep, there we go. Oh, I'm still figuring out the quirks on this thing. I'm not too worried about it right now. But trying to get back on topic of where I was, or where we were at least, while I not spectate artillery. There's Dis. Alright,
Yeah.
I just need someone to spectate here, because you're kind of demonstrating things that you're talking about. I mean, you are at least facing a platoon of tier 2s, or now of 2 heavy tanks. But I'm trying to think here. Because like we were talking about earlier before we had this like little podcast discussion thing, is that there's a ton of variables. And the only variables I can really think of is what are they shooting at you? What map are you on? How many tanks are in said platoon? The health. I mean, there's so many. I agree. We all said earlier. It's very hard to figure out how to fight things because there's just so many variables that are at stake when dealing with this.
Well,
is Artie targeting you? What is your health? Like, are you able to take a shot? I mean,
you're right, and on top of that, the battle is constantly changing. I mean, in this game, anybody knows, the first 5 minutes is very different from the middle 5 minutes versus the last, even if it lasts that long. So it's also being able to adapt to the battle environment as it evolves. Are you up tanks?
Yeah.
Are you down tanks? Is the platoon you're encountering, are they weak? Or, sometimes they're absolute Muppet platoons out there that are no threat to anybody except for themselves. They play so horribly.
yeah, no, I mean, it's... You encounter all types of platoons.
Well, let's look at this last map. There is a platoon of heavy tanks, and they went out into the field, out in open ground, in an A43. I can just auto-lock them, put premium on, circle them, and take them out. If they ran up to the 9-0 line, battled out with the heavy tanks, I have no impact on that at all.
Yeah.
I'm not, I don't know why they went out there and thought that was the right place to play those tanks, but that was not the right place to win that game.
Yeah, no. I mean, I did mention this in a video of just overviewing heavy tanks in general, and while that I'm catering more to high tiers of this is your end goal, this is where people are expecting you to behave and go at these tiers, the same thing goes all the way down to even the lower tiers of tier 5s, and that is heavy tanks in point are not supposed to be going out into open fields and performing scout tank roles or medium tanks or TDs. Your job as a heavy tank is to go to where the enemy team is going to be at and just get in their face and just trade. I mean, it's...
I can't agree more with that.
That's your point.
Yeah.
Dis, you're supposed to pick a Merc tank.
I'm supposed to pick a what tank?
A Merc.
Oh,
Merc.
oh,
Apparently.
I don't have a Merc tank.
Oh, you don't
What
have
is wrong with you? How do you not have a Merc tank?
Because I've been grinding to get tanks that we
He's
actually
been
use in
getting-
comp.
Yeah, exactly. Although when the machine comes, we might use that. Who knows? We'll see.
Yeah. When that year-long contract comes out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which will probably be after the Tusk is done, is my best.
And that's the 430U and the K91 and the
Ooh,
version 4.
yes.
I don't know how I feel about the K91.
7058.
I don't want to.
The 32.
That's the same.
It's
It has
the
a
same
fully
thing, just a
traversable
version.
turret, so it's better.
Over the. It's not quite fully traversable. It's like one. It's more than the 432. Quite spin all the way around.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought it went all
Yeah.
the way around.
Yeah, no, the
No.
K91's only got like I think 70 degrees or something of traverse on each side. I mean, we're going into
That's it.
an area of a topic that I do want to discuss. I can't really tell you my video release schedule right now. But I do want to get overviews of just lines in general out as I possibly can. But there's gonna be a nice little discussion in the Discord channel about this stuff because there's a lot of people view what tanks do overall. I mean, because medium tanks, those are the jack of all trades, master of none, category right there. There are so many medium tanks that can fit the role of things, but that's what it's going to end up being. I'm going to figure that out. I do have a question here. What is my favorite tank? I have actually a lot of favorite tanks. Most of the time, the tanks that I 3-mark end up becoming my favorite. But I would have to say overall my favorite, just based on my stats in the World of Tanks website, would be the Centurion Action X. I am a fanboy of anything that has pretty much a Centurion piece on it. So... yeah. I don't know what I'm going to do here. I'm probably just going to go middle while I ignore my dog in the background.
I'm gonna snipe.
Back to the platoon thing. I don't think there's really much else to cover regarding that. Because there's so many variables. I would almost just say, for those that are here for the information, it's literally figure out exactly, just to sum things up, if you have no choice but to fight them, eliminate the tanks that you are able to eliminate as quickly as possible. Use your do not get singled out. Stay with your team, even if you are not in a platoon. Safety in numbers. I mean, fish do that in the ocean. Safety in numbers. And if you have to leave, keep your distance from the platoon. It kind of contradicts the, safety in numbers, but, if you got a buffer of friendly tanks between you and the enemy platoon, that's still almost safety in numbers, because people in front that for. I don't know. Anyone else have anything to add on that?
They're pushing hard, yeah. They're pushing a little hard on the one line, and we don't have a lot there, so we need to get through the city.
All right.
I was going to say, everything you said I agree with 100%. The only thing I'd add is keep analyzing the map. Keep looking at that mini-map, and at any point, don't be scared to, or don't be ashamed to...
Oh, I was not looking.
Always be aware.
Yeah, don't be like me and
thing.
not pay attention to the Minuteman in front of you.
Just the biggest thing I would say in general with this game in general is you gotta be aware of the entire map at all times.
Yeah. See, they've already broken through on the one line. We don't really have the armor or the to handle all these, especially with that Minuteman sitting in the cap. But we just got to close quarters on him, get him out, and then force them to come back.
Well, that time I died, I let myself stop there to try more shots. That was my own mistake. That's
Jump
a lesson
on that cap.
right there.
Let's get 3 on the cap, and we'll use our heavy tank.
Hurry up.
They got.
They got it.
cap
They
too
got
on
300
our
bucks.
cap.
No, it's not one of those things. It's kind of more of just, that's a really good comparison of the safety and numbers concept.
Let's
But
stay.
while they
This is the
are,
only way we're going with this.
Yep.
yeah,
Tuck it in. Tuck it in.
this is a video I'm going to cover at some point is when to cap. I think we can all
Now.
agree here. Yeah, now is a good time to cap when it is
Yeah.
3 there and you have to cap, and that is your only chance. This is the thing, not capping when there's only 1 tank left alive.
Yeah.
But
And this is coming from people who absolutely despise doing this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
That anyway. I'm gonna close up this so that way I can make this into a video pretty easily, and I can just have a closing segment here.
Cool.
Any other tips regarding the platoon topic in general? Anything here to discuss, or I felt that I missed?
No, I think you nailed it, bud.
I think we're good. No,
The communication. I do want to touch up on that real fast. The solo though, but this also counts too. I have seen you are fighting solo. The communication, if you are an auto loader, it is important to you end up, you empty your clip. It's important that you let your team kind of silently been looked at. I see like a 50B empty their clip and then they just leave because they're reloading. I covered this in the heavy tank thing. Once an auto loader is empty, it becomes nothing more than a defenseless HP farm. I mean, so it's important to let your team know that hey, you're no longer able to. You're not combat effective. You cannot fight anymore. So communication is actually an important aspect of that. I'm glad you guys brought that up because if your team knows that you're reloading and they maybe realize that they kind of need to pick up where you left off or protect you a little bit, they can do that. I wouldn't count on it, but it's always helpful to let the team know that you're empty, at least as an auto loader.
For sure.
But overall, I'm going to give it one more time. No one else has anything else to say regarding fighting platoons? Nope. All right. Well, that's going to be nice to know that's you, Fox. Thank you so much. It is that will be it for this little podcast topic thing. I'm obviously going to keep streaming, of course, just because I said I would. But that will be it for the little segment that's going to be turned into a video. I will still be able to answer questions. It just will not be included in the video. But thank you all for watching this YouTube video. And if you like what you see, hit that thumbs up. And if you want to see more, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. But until next time, this is Darren of WoTC Academy.